whether you're on top or bottom. It's all about gaining the inside position, getting to an underhook, pulling your partner on top of you. Again, if you get flattened out, you're fucked.
What's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent?
He's dropping off for the choke here. We could see the finish. It's looking tight. Tight at Dogbar.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Everyday Jiu Jitsu Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kwan. The Everyday Jiu Jitsu Podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu Jitsu. Today we're going to discuss half guard stuff, the Coyote half guard, what I believe to be the best half guard series there is. It's probably one of the first systems you should learn, and it'll follow you all the way until the black belt level. It's one of my favorite systems. If you've ever rolled with me, I've definitely tried to put you in the Coyote half guard. Before we get into that, please like, share, subscribe. Check out the links in the bottom if you want to support the show. Thank you so much for listening. So I am feeling a little bit under the weather right now, so please forgive me if I'm a little bit drowsy and a little bit nasally. I did wake up and have some bloody mucus, which was not very fun. And then tomorrow we're going on a road trip. We're going to actually go into the interior of British Columbia for Canada Day, where we're going to celebrate with some friends. So I'm hoping I'm feeling better for then. It's a little bit late right now. It's less than ideal circumstances, but I got to crank out an episode for you guys. And I've been meaning to do an episode on the Coyote half guard. So before we get into that, I just want to talk about where I got some of my information from for today's episode. I'll be honest, it is a system that I learned when I was an early blue belt. One of my early instructors, Jason Gagnon, was a very, he really enjoyed the half guard, and obviously rolling with someone who's constantly using the half guard and underhooks from half guard, you're going to ask them, what are you doing to me? How come you can sweep me every time? And so he basically showed me this basic Coyote half guard dilemma, and it's something that I've always used. I love the Coyote half guard. But I would recommend you guys start your studying with, obviously, as I always talk about, John Danaher has amazing context on the Coyote half guard. He has gi instructionals and no gi instructionals for his half guard system. No gi, new wave, 3 directions of attack, I believe, is his no gi version of the half guard. And he also has a gi instructional. I believe it's, what is it called? Go Further Faster. It's like a fundamental series that's a couple of years old now. Again, he goes into great detail on the Coyote half guard. Also, this is a half guard that I believe is credited to a gentleman named Lucas Leitch, who is of the Checkmat camp, and he's a legend in jiu-jitsu, and he became very famous for his use of the Coyote half guard. And of course, I want to shout out to Jake McKenzie, who is, again, a huge half guard player. Canadian, probably the most decorated BJJ fighter in the gi from Canada. And Jake's a great guy. I've met him. I've trained with him before, and he's got a fantastic world-class half guard. And you should definitely check out those guys if you want to learn some awesome half guard stuff. This is actually a huge topic, really. I don't know how I could do multiple episodes on the Coyote half guard. The Coyote half guard is essentially a system where you get into an underhook, you're underneath your partner's hips, and then from there you are torquing your partner's knee, and you're basically giving them a choice. Hey, do you want to get your knee twisted off, or do you want to accept this sweep? And they can basically concede the sweep by allowing you to roll them through, or they can base out pretty hard with a post on the mat, and this actually exposes a wrestle-up. And so it's a very, very strong dilemma, and I believe it to be probably the strongest half guard system in jiu-jitsu. I believe that everybody should know this system. I think it does favor people who are older and less athletic. That is why Danaher talks about this in his bottom game instructional for athletes who are older and less athletic. He talks a lot about the Coyote half guard and why it's so effective. But I've just really been hammering my kids with this system over the last month or so, and now they're starting to really use it. And it is a very, very effective system. You don't see a lot of kids use it. I think it's good for people of all levels, from the beginners all the way up until black belt, any age group, all the way up until the seniors in the room. Coyote half guard is by far, I think, the most effective half guard system there is. And if I had any system that I could use from the half guard, for the rest of my life, it would be the Coyote half guard. So let's discuss the half guard, just basic fundamentals, things that we want and things that we don't want in the half guard. This is the so-called half guard paradox that John Danaher always talks about. Basically, if you're on the bottom and you're getting flattened in the half guard and your opponent on top has an underhook, you're fucked. There's a saying that we always have in the gym back in the day. If you get flattened out, you're fucked in the half guard, more specifically. And to be even more specific, when we say flattened out, we mean your far hip and your far shoulder flattened out. And it's funny, like when I introduce the idea of knee shield to the kids in my program, I tell them to stay on their side. And then I look over where I'm like, okay, just play this simple game from the knee shield. Top person is trying to flatten the bottom person out. Bottom person is trying to get an underhook and pull the top person on top of them with their ear under their belly. Okay. And essentially, if you can do those things, you're the winner, right? Bottom person's trying to get to the underhook position, ear under the belly. Top person's trying to get an underhook, flatten the bottom person out. And the kids will start and they'll just be completely on their back, flat. Like they have no concept of staying on their side in the half guard, which is probably the most important concept of all when you first start playing the half guard or the knee shield, right? Another thing is that not a lot of players will pass on their knees anymore, whereas back in the day, it was very common for people to pass on their knees. And so there was a lot more of a need for this knee shield style half guard. People do still play passing on their knees, but I would say the majority of jiu-jitsu now is done where the top player is passing on their feet. And so it doesn't really give the bottom person as much of an opportunity to play a system like the Coyote half guard. If the person on top is doing loose passing, then you are, going to be playing open guards for the most part. Ashigrami, Delahiva, seated guard, whatever. If the person is dropped to their knees, now this presents an opportunity to play knee shield and to get into the Coyote half guard. But again, just to reiterate the paradox of the half guard, if the person on top can flatten the bottom person out chest to chest, it's a great passing position. But if the bottom person can get chest to chest with an underhook and get their ear on their partner's belly button, then it's an excellent sweeping position. And so, as Danaher talks about in literally every single one of his instructionals, this is the paradox of the half guard. And so it's important to understand that we always want to be on our side when we're in the half guard, and we never want to give up the underhook. We always want to dominate the space in between our partner and ourselves, whether you're on top or bottom. It's all about gaining the inside position, getting to an underhook, pulling your partner on top of you. Again, if you get flattened out, you're fucked. Okay, so let's talk about Kuzushi from the bottom. If we're going to have an effective half guard, we really need to make sure that we have Kuzushi. What is Kuzushi, you ask? Why do I use these fancy Japanese words? Probably because I want to sound smarter than I actually am. But Kuzushi is the act of breaking someone's balance. And it should be the foundation of any situation in jiu-jitsu, really. But even more so when you're in any bottom position, whether it's a bottom pin or a bottom guarded position, we always want to break our opponent's stance. How do we know we're breaking our opponent's stance? They're getting off balance, their head is moving around, and even more so, they're posting their hands on the mat or they're falling to a hip. This is like really, really good concrete evidence that we're doing a good job of breaking our partner's balance. And so without any of this, none of your techniques will work against anybody any good. Maybe against white belts, you'll be able to hit a couple techniques, but you definitely have to attack somebody's stance before you attack them with any kind of a technique. And so how are we going to generate Kuzushi from the bottom half guard? One of the main things I like to do when I have a knee shield is just start pumping my knees back and forth. And this is very, very effective. It allows you to bring your partner forward and backward, and this really does a good job of creating Kuzushi. I also like to go side to side, so using a side scissor where I knock my opponent away from me, this often presents me an opportunity to hit an underhook, or if they drive back towards my center, I can hit a John Wayne towards my other side. And so we have a knee shield that is pumping back and forth, creating Kuzushi, and also side scissoring and using a knee lever or a John Wayne left and right. There's other ways that we can create off balances, like we can scoop our partner's far leg and get underneath the hips if we want to go into leg entanglements and deep half guard. We can hit a scoop on the far ankle and start to off balance our partner. And this gives us a really good opportunity to wrestle up on top or even pummel our knee shield leg into the inside and start entering into ashigarami. But generally, I would say most of the time I'm using the pumping method back and forth. and also a side scissor and a John Wayne left and right. And this often will give me an opportunity to shoot for an underhook. And when we shoot for our underhook, because the whole Coyote system is based around getting an underhook. And Raji, you can sit on my lap, but please don't disrupt the recording. I also see a lot of beginners. They will keep their knee shield and try and have an underhook at the same time. But actually, this actually cancels both the underhook and the knee shield will cancel each other out. The purpose of the knee shield is to prevent your partner from coming forward. The purpose of the underhook is actually to prevent your partner from backing away. And so you can't really have both, right? You have to trade a knee shield for an underhook. And so that's why it's so important to off balance somebody with the knee shield until you see an opportunity to get chest to chest from the bottom. And when I say that, I mean like get your ear on your partner's chest. And at that moment, you'll be shooting your knee shield through and exchanging it for a tight waist or an underhook. A tight waist meaning like taking an underhook and grabbing your partner's far hip, which is kind of the main position that you'll be putting your arm when you're starting to enter into wrestle-ups and Coyote guard. All right. So we can't really have both. We can't have a knee shield and an underhook at the same time. But once you get to that position, I got to move my cat. So hold on. Are you upset about this? Yeah, go away. So once you do get your ear on your partner's chest and you're wrestling up, a lot of time you got to pull them back on top of you. And what I'm really trying to do is I want to hear that smacking sound of their hand hitting the mat. What this tells me is that their hand is based on the mat and I've done a good job of breaking their balance. And now potentially there's also an opportunity to wrestle up. So it's important to understand that when you're entering into these half guard underhook situations, that your partner will either be posting with their hand or be putting in a whizzer. And the purpose of the whizzer is to prevent you from going to their back and to make it hard for you to wrestle up. The purpose of the post on the hand is to prevent you from rolling them through. And so this is a clear dilemma that we need to get used to. And we need to be aware of what this whizzer hand is doing. If this whizzer hand is putting pressure on us, then it's a good time to start looking for our roll through sweep, which we'll be talking about in a bit. And if the hand is posting, then we're going to start wrestling up. So, we always need to be aware of that. And generally, whenever I shoot my underhook, I can expect that my partner won't just let me wrestle up. I almost immediately, just instinctually, will get a response from my partner where they start pushing me back into the mat. And this is why I pretty much as soon as I sit up to an underhook, I immediately change directions and I pull my partner on top of me. So I kind of use that reaction against them and get their hands to the mat. And then I can start to establish my Coyote guard. So let's talk about the lower leg shift before we start going into actual sweeps from here, because the lower leg shift is, I guess it's kind of the marquee trait. It's part of the trademark of the Coyote guard. So the lower leg shift is basically where you're going to exchange your inside half guard leg for the outside half guard leg. Some people might know this as a Kosoto hook. The outside leg is often referred to as a Kosoto hook because there is a takedown in judo. I believe it's called Kosoto gake, where you reap the outside leg on your partner and take them down to the outside. And so this is translated to the ground as well. And when you hook your partner's leg with the Kosoto hook, it has a quality where you can pull your partner's ankle outside of their knee line. So you're essentially twisting their knee in a really uncomfortable way. So their knee and their hip is going to be taking a lot of pressure because you're internally rotating their hip. And we're not really very flexible in that range. And at the same time, keep in mind, you got your tight waist, which gives us tremendous control over our partner's far hip. And then generally we're looking for a scoop over the far leg as well. So we kind of have this like far hip and far leg scoop grips, and we're pulling our partner in. Imagine your ears on your partner's belly button. This is something I always tell my students of all levels, as I say, if your ear is not on your partner's belly, then you're going to be exposed to strangles. You're going to be exposed to pins. A lot of people will try and get an underhook, but their partner's head is on their chest. And so they need to do a good job of hiking their partner back up and getting their ear under their belly button. Usually I use like a kipping movement, and I will take my underhook arm and sort of like bring my ear to my shoulder and just bring my partner up and over my head to get my ear under their chest. It is very, very important detail to get your ear on your partner's belly button so that you're in the right position to actually use the Coyote half guard. Once you do that, now we can make our Kosoto hook. And really what we want to do is we want to attack our partner at the ankle and the knee. So the ankle would be the long end of the lever, the knee is the short end of the lever. And very similar to a Kimura, I want to think about creating that rotation, right? Imagine doing a Kimura on somebody who has a straight arm. It's just, you're not going to get any kind of leverage. But when we can bend our partner's leg and twist their ankle to the side, while we can start to drive pressure up into the side of their knee, now we're giving them a reason to get swept. And this is the whole strength of the system. I always tell my guys, like, really what you're doing is you're offering your partner like an ultimatum here. You're saying, hey, do you want to get your knee broken here? Or you want to, it's either going to be your knee or your hip. Something's going to go. You have to tolerate, this flexion that I'm putting on your body, and it's going to hurt a lot. So do you want to stay here and get broken, or do you want to go over? And usually what they'll do is they'll either concede the sweep, or sometimes they'll post their hand out. And when they do that, that's a chance to wrestle up. And so there is our little dilemma that we have here. So that lower leg shift, we've used the Kosoto hook, and then we're going to create as much tension on our partner's leg as we can. How do we build this tension with the lower leg shift? Because I do see some people when they first try the position, they hook the leg, but it's so loose. Generally, you have to use your whole body to create tension, and we're going to use a bridging movement. And you'll know that you're doing a good job of bridging and creating that tension that we need to sweep our partner, because your hips will be glued to their hips. There will be no space in between your hips and their hips. So there's a big reason why this is such a good guard for like old fucks like me, is because it creates so much connection to the top player. So because you have all this connection to them, it's very hard for them to be quick and athletic. And you'll know that you're creating a good connection to your partner and putting tension in their knee, because their knee will actually come off the ground. And this is, again, another trademark indication that I'm doing a good job. I'm hipping in like a bridge. I'm back heeling with my legs, and I'm hipping into the side of the knee so much that the knee is now coming off the mat. And now we can start to look at our roll through sweep. So we've hit our lower leg shift. Ear is on our partner's belly button. I've got my tight waist, and I've got my grip under the far hamstring. I've got that scoop grip on the far leg. Now it's time to start sweeping our partner. So when we're underneath there, we really have to make sure that we're aware of our partner's reactions. And it's not something that can really be taught through words. It's one of those things where you really do have to put yourself in that position. So we've been playing a ton of games from different half guard situations where the bottom player's got an underhook to start. Obviously, we play from where the top person's got an underhook to start. We're working pin recoveries, reverse half guard, sit out, deep half guard. These are all positions that should be gamified, right? But you have to go into that position and kind of feel your partner's reaction. If I started wrestling up on you, generally you're going to start pushing into me. And then if I start to try and roll you through and pull you on top of me, generally I'm going to feel people pull away from me. So you have to be really aware of this change in direction. An interesting thing that Danaher has said, if I'm sure you follow him on Instagram. He's got like every day he does a post, and they're always so insightful, right? Like or hate the guy, he's what he's done for jiu-jitsu is, very, very important. And I think he's got a lot of good insight, obviously. And he talks about how you don't have to be the fastest athlete. Take a guy like Gordon Ryan, not the fastest athlete, but can change directions very fast. Very quick directional changes are much more valuable than just speed in general. And in this case, when we're playing Coyote half guard, it is true. We really want to change directions quickly. When we feel our partner resist and give us energy in a particular direction, we want to take advantage of that and go with it. So if I'm trying to roll you through and you're pulling away from me, I'm going to use that to wrestle up. Vice versa, if I try and wrestle up and you push into me, this is an opportunity for me to roll you through. And so you have to become sensitive to this directional change from your opponent on top. But let's say, all is good. They're whizzering me and it's time to do a roll through sweep. Again, I want to hip into their knee, give them that choice. Okay, we can break your knee or we can go over. And I have seen people break their knees. Like a guy did this to PJ Barch a couple years ago at ADCC trials. PJ was killing it. And I believe it was semis or quarters. He got caught in a Coyote. The guy actually locked his hands and hipped in with the intention of breaking the knee. I believe he broke his ACL, and PJ was out for like a year with an ACL replacement. So it's a nasty move. And And I don't condone using it as a submission because I don't want to break anyone's knee. If I break someone's knee, I want them to know they're in a submission and there's a choice for them to tap and give them time to tap. It's an ethical thing. I know it's competition. I know, we rip training partners and it's different when you're a competitor, but at the same time, it's like, man, I wouldn't want anyone to do that to me. So I'm very careful when I'm inside someone's coyote guard. If I feel like there's a good bite, I'll just, sometimes you got to accept the sweep. Um, but that being said, let's say we've got our grips, our head's in good position. We've got the Kosoto, and we're torquing the knee and our partner's trying to go over, trying to prevent the sweep, but we're now leveraging them and taking them over. A really good detail. Obviously we can bridge into the knee to create a lot of pressure, but sometimes our partner will still be able to post out. There's a very interesting detail where we can do like a forward shrimp movement and turn in a circle. So we're sort of scooting into the sweep rather than just tilting our partner straight over. We're actually forward shrimping in a circle. And the reasoning for this, as Danaher has explained many times on instructionals, is because our partner wants to post their hand out, but their hand is posted in a wide circle. So when they post their hand out, if you keep moving, you're actually forward shrimping in a smaller circle than they're posting their hand. So they have to post their hand, but their hand is being posted out further and wider than you are turning. So you're kind of turning on a dime and they're posting on a wide circumference. And so in theory, you should be able to, because you're spinning in a smaller circle than them, you should be able to finish the sweep, even if they are posting. But generally in a competitive situation, you're going against a strong athletic opponent. It's difficult to do that. So a lot of the time when I feel them post, it's an opportunity for me to wrestle up. And when you finish the roll through sweep, what I think the roll through sweep is one of the, it's truly one of the most beautiful sweeps in jiu-jitsu because it's so controlling. And when you do finish the roll through sweep, you land chest to chest on your partner in the half guard. Usually the Kosoto hook becomes a top leg Turk. If you don't know what a Turk is, it's a wrestling term, where you're hooking your partner's leg and you're hipping in. And so their leg is kind of stuck at an angle. And when you do this, if you keep the Turk, they actually can't shrimp and turn into you and move. They're stuck here and it's hard for them to get up too. So usually when I finish the Coyote roll through sweep, I like to keep the Turk on the knee because it prevents my partner from getting into base and generating movement and stopping them from turning into me. A lot of people will finish the sweep and then they'll let the leg go immediately. And the person on the bottom now they can now put two hands on the mat and they can start to move. So it's definitely something that I would recommend is keeping that leg controlled while you're moving into the next position. Maybe you're going to go into a folder pass. Maybe you're going to backstep into side control. Maybe you're just going to stay on top and smash the legs together. Whatever you're going to do. For me, I think there's no negatives to keeping control of that leg after the sweep. So that's another reason why I love the Coyote half guard, because once you sweep someone, you land in a dominant half guard position. So that's another benefit of that move. Of course, let's now discuss the wrestle up dilemma. I've already mentioned it, but if my partner does not allow me to roll them through because they're posting their hand on the mat, that is a sign that I should now wrestle up. And there's a couple different ways that we can get up from here. Instinctually, when I show wrestling up from here, what everyone tries to do is they try and post their elbow and get up from there. It's very, very difficult to get up in this way because a lot of the time your partner's going to be putting pressure on you. So how are you going to prop up to your elbow, right? And I got a bad shoulder, so it's hard for me to prop up to my elbow and get up. There's kind of two ways you can come up. One of them will be facing the same direction as your partner, and the other way will be like a duck under where you're looking up into the ceiling. So if I'm going to be wrestling up from the half guard, instead of propping up on my elbow, I'm going to look down on the mat and put my forehead on the mat and use my head as a post. And then my hips will come up first. So I'll scissor my legs and my hips will come up first. And now from here, we can wrestle up. Okay. And we're usually wrestling up into the dog fight situation, or in wrestling, they call it whizzer versus underhook. So we're going to talk about that in a moment. The other way that we can come up is a duck under. And I think the duck under is much more effective. And the duck under, instead of coming up and facing the same direction with my partner in whizzer versus underhook, I'm going to come up And basically, when I see that my partner's posting on the mat, I'm going to post on his armpit or his lat muscle and just push it and just duck underneath and put my ear on his back. So I'll be looking up into the ceiling and he'll be looking away. And when you do this, you have excellent back exposure, and there's no way that your partner can put a whizzer in. So I think it's honestly the better way to come up, but they're both good. Use them both. And again, if I feel like that roll through sweep isn't working, I'm going to go into a wrestle up situation. When you wrestle up on somebody, you got to understand, if you wrestle up and there's no whizzer there, then there's going to be opportunities for you to go to the back. But if they have a whizzer in place, now you're in the dogfight situation. So you could wrestle up into a situation where there is a whizzer or where there isn't a whizzer. If there isn't a whizzer, go to the back. If there is a whizzer, now we're entering into the dogfight position. And again, at any time, if I'm driving into my partner and they're driving me back into me, then potentially I could just roll underneath, right? Roll underneath and go back into our favorite sweep of all time, the roll through sweep. Okay, let's talk about the dogfight situation, whizzer versus underhook. One thing that Danaher talks about that I really, really find valuable is like understanding the whizzer and when the whizzer is going to be important. Important's not the right word. When the whizzer is going to be effective and when the whizzer's going to be not effective. If you have your arm around your partner's waist and you're controlling the far hip, it's an excellent way to control your partner's far hip and rotate them through and do all these things. But the problem with this hand positioning is now you're going to feel all of the weight of your partner's whizzer. So when you're in whizzer versus underhook, what you can do to make their whizzer way less effective is just drop your hand down by their hip into a single leg position. So you're actually, you're going to be, your hand is going to be down by their ass where their butt meets their hamstring into a single leg position. And from here, you'll find the whizzer's not very effective. Another thing you can do is you can put your hand up and high and over your partner's shoulder. So your arm is going straight up instead of straight across. When your arm is either straight up or straight down by the hamstring, the whizzer is very ineffective. And this is important because sometimes you'll be wrestling up from the Coyote guard. And if you have a whizzer in place, it'll be very difficult to get up because your partner's whizzer is very heavy. What you can do is you can drop your arm down to their hamstring into a single leg position, and you can even sometimes give them a kick in the butt with your knee and wrestle up from there. So it's a very effective way to, if you're having issues getting to the wrestle up position from the Coyote guard, dropping your hand down by your partner's hamstring is going to allow you to take weight off that whizzer, take pressure off that whizzer and get up. And you can always go back to a tight waist. You can always go back to the far hip if it makes sense for you. So it's important to understand the tight waist versus the single leg position with your underhook. When you are in the dogfight situation, I'll be honest, in most competitive situations, your partner is probably going to stand. And that's honestly a very smart response, because in the dogfight situation, which you're going to end up in a lot if you're playing Coyote half guard, you're going to end up there a lot. In that situation, usually height advantage wins, right? So if my partner stands up, I need to also stand up. I don't want to be grabbing his leg or his hip and my knees are on the floor and I'm extended. I need to now also get into a standing position. And this is usually going to turn into whizzer versus underhook or whizzer versus body lock standing situation. You still have an excellent position if you know what you're doing to finish the reversal or the takedown. But, most people, I would say, will not stay on their knees. Most people will try to build height and make this a standing situation. They're trying to abort the position because they realize, you have inside position, you have the underhook. They're not going to want to stay on their knees. But let's say they did stay on their knees. How are we going to win this whizzer versus underhook battle? The concepts of hip and head position are the same for dogfight position on the knees and from standing whizzer versus underhook. So that's important to understand. I'll try and make it as easy to understand as possible. If my partner has a whizzer and their leg is in front of my hip. So generally when you wrestle up from a Coyote half guard, your partner has the inside hip position because you're hooking their leg, right? So if you can picture it, you have an underhook on your partner, they have a whizzer, their hip will be in front of your hip. And so Because you have that hook on their leg, they have the inside hip. That means that if you're leaning forward too much, you can be thrown with an uchimata, right? And I've seen a lot of beginners, they don't know how to act responsibly inside the whizzer versus underhook situation. Their partner's got a whizzer and the inside hip, and so they lean forward as if they're gonna take them down, and they get thrown hard. So what we have to do, if our partner has the inside hip and if they have the whizzer, we want to drive our head into their chest and essentially put our ear into the back corner. We want to push our hips into our partner's hip and drive our head into our partner's shoulder line to bring our partner's shoulders behind their hips, ideally. If their head can come forward and if they can bring their shoulders in front of their hips, that's where you get thrown. So we need to drive into the back corner with our head and our hips, and then from there we can take them down in a backward direction. If our hip is in front and we have a whizzer, we have the underhook, then that's when we're going to be able to do takedowns, like power twist, one of the easiest ones, where we just lock a body lock and we rip our elbow across the center and take our partner down. We can also use pinch headlocks, one of my favorites, where we lock palm to palm or 10 fingers around our partner's head with the underhook. And again, we're just going to rip our partner across. Because we have the inside hip, we can't be thrown forward, but we could be countered in a backward direction. So general rule of thumb, when we're playing whizzer versus underhook, whether we're in the dog fight situation or when we're in a standing situation, if our partner who has the whizzer has their hip in front, we can be thrown forward. We want to take them in a backward direction. If we joust our hips in front of our partners, now we want to bend over and we want to throw them forward by pulling our partner across our body. So there's going to be a lot of fighting for the inside hip. There's going to be fighting to stand up quicker than our partner. Sometimes if I have a tight waist on my partner and he goes to stand, there will actually be an opportunity, instead of scooping the inside leg, scooping the near leg on the outside and rolling our partner through. And it's actually very, very effective. Usually when I see my partner try and slide their leg out, or if I see him try and stand up, this is the perfect time to hit the outside scoop roll through, which essentially is the same mechanics as a roll through sweep. It's just, instead of scooping the far leg, we're scooping the outside of the near leg. Another big mistake you'll see is people will try to take the back when they have an underhook, but the person has a whizzer. So again, if you try and just throw your leg over your partner's hip and they have a whizzer, you can't go to the back while that whizzer's in place. And this actually sets you up for a really big uchimata. You'll get thrown down to the mat. Maybe you can recover back to coyote guard. Maybe not. Maybe you just end up in side control because you got thrown so hard. Either way, we don't want to get thrown hard from the dogfight position. We want to make sure that we stay safe in the dogfight position. And so what we can do is we can actually just turn our hips out. So we can turn our hips out and blade our body away. If I have the dogfight position and I'm looking in at my partner's body and I'm trying to scoop that leg and my head is down, that's when we get thrown. But if I turn my hips out and away from my partner, instead of looking into him, I'm looking away from him, it's very difficult for him to throw the whizzer. And what this allows us to do is actually step over our partner, and we can do a variety of different finishes. One of them is the suck back, where we just literally, we blade our body and then we stand over our partner, and now he's in between our two knees. We have the height advantage with our underhook. We're just going to lock our hands in a body lock and just suck him in and basically put him right in mount. Suck back is one of my favorite finishes from the dog fight position. Definitely need to check that out. So again, if you're going to go behind your partner's whizzer, you have to blade your body first and create a strong angle. You cannot just face the same direction as your partner and step over the back. You're going to get thrown. You have to turn your body outward, and then you can step over your partner and you can suck them back. Another great way to finish from there is a limp arm. So anytime we're in whizzer versus underhook, and our partner's applying strong whizzer pressure, we can now start to go into limp arms. And the mechanics of the limp arm are this. Like I said earlier, if your hand is down by your partner's hamstring, that is where the whizzer is weak. And so what I want to do is I want to bring my hand down into that hamstring area. Then I want to dip my shoulder down. So I'm going to make my shoulder limp. Then I'm just going to basically just flick my arm out and away from my partner and like magic, he loses the whizzer. Now I have back exposure, right? At any time, if my partner's whizzer is like not very strong, like if it's just kind of there but it's not in front, Danner calls this a rear whizzer or a back whizzer. When the whizzer is in the back whizzer, it's like a weak whizzer. That's going to allow you to throw your partner's arm by. If the arm is very, very strong and it's pulling up and you can see his hand, that's a front whizzer. From there, that's going to be a formidable whizzer, and it's going to be difficult to go behind that whizzer. This is where we're going to use limp arms, or we're going to stand up and use other body lock takedowns, right? So he says, pay very special attention to your partner's whizzer hand. Always want to pay attention to whether or not it's in front as a front whizzer or if it's in the back whizzer. If it's a front whizzer, we have to respect it. If it's a back whizzer, sometimes we can just throw the arm by. Man, so much information. Whizzer versus underhook is such an important battle. What else? Oh, one thing that I really like, another awesome DVD is Dante Leon has a wrestle up DVD, and I believe he talks about finishing from the wrestling up from the half guard as well. And one thing he talks about is when you get up into the dogfight position, instead of like instinctually, you'll want to lean forward and like tap your partner's knee and drive into them. And that is effective, right? That is effective. But the problem with reaching for that far knee is sometimes you can get thrown because like I said, if your partner has the inside hip and your head is down and you're leaning forward, easy for them to roll you through again. But what I use a lot when I wrestle up from this coyote position is I'll get to the dog fight with my underhook and I'll just sit my weight back on my heels and drive my head into my partner's far shoulder. So because my energy is moving back and I'm postured up, it makes it very difficult for him to throw me forward. This presents us with a couple of opportunities. One opportunity is hitting a knee slide, where I basically will slide my knee in a circle as I'm driving my weight back and pulling my partner's hips back. This allows me to take them backwards. So it keeps me safe from the Uchimata, and I get a really, really awesome sweep where I land, again, in a dominant position. Another method that we can use to finish this wrestle-up situation is we drop our arm into a single leg position, as we talked about before, right? We can always transition our underhook arm from a tight waist to a single. And then from there, we can, again, blade our body. So it's interesting how like blading your body just creates so many opportunities, right? Like this is an important concept. Just by turning your body side on, you can actually expose your partner's heel and start to shelf their foot on your hip. This is a wrestling technique. Of course, in jiu-jitsu, we're whores. We steal everything from everyone. If it works, then we're going to steal it. It doesn't matter if it's from judo or sambo or wrestling. We're going to steal it. We're like chameleons in jiu-jitsu, right? Hey, that works. Let's steal it. So this is a wrestling technique where we shelf the leg, and then from there we can drive into our partner's hips down into the mat. And man, it's going to be really difficult for them to recover once their heel is shelved. So I actually believe in a no-gi and a gi situation, if you can shelf your partner's leg, it's one of the best ways to get your score because it is so hard for them to escape. Another great thing about shelving that leg, man, I've been playing with the situation, and if the circumstances make sense, then you're actually in a perfect position to enter backside 50-50. So if you shelf your partner's leg on your hip and you have a good grip on their knee, now you can, at any time, you can just fall over on your side and whip your leg over the top, and you can enter the backside 50-50 and basically immediately start attacking heel hooks. So there's another cool dilemma there from this shelf. What would you call it? A backside single, where you shelf your partner's leg on your hip. So lots of good finishes there. And of course, there is that dilemma of the heel hook. We can fall backwards into the backside 50-50 with the shelved leg. One thing that we do have to be aware of, we have to be aware of the backstep. Whenever we're playing like a coyote half guard or a half guard in general, just understand that your partner's leg has the inside position, right? You don't have double inside position like a butterfly guard. He has split your legs. So this is, I guess, an obvious inherent weakness of playing half guard is at any time, if you commit too much to the wrestle up, your partner can just backstep and potentially enter like a cross ashigarami, which is one of the strongest leg entanglement positions, right? You know, you take a guy like Oliver Taza, if you're going to play coyote against him, 9 times out of 10, he's probably backstepping into the saddle. And it's a damn good entry. It's effective. And, like relatively savvy with legs. So to me, I actually don't mind at all, because if my partner backsteps in the saddle, usually they backstep into like a reverse half guard. And man, I study my Jake McKenzie stuff, and his reverse half guard is so sick. He's got some really great content on reverse half guard. You can even just check it out on YouTube. There's tons of stuff you can do from reverse half guard. So I actually don't fear that position at all. But obviously, we don't want our partner to backstep into the saddle. So generally, it takes a little bit of intuition. We have to be aware that that is a possibility. But if you are hooking your partner's leg in the half guard and they backstep, if you take your outside leg and just pummel it underneath your partner's foot as they backstep, then it totally hides you from the saddle, because you regain the inside position. So just by pummeling a butterfly hook as your partner backsteps, you can actually do a cool back take. There's a move called the Jedi mind trick where you can kind of lace the hook. It's going to be hard to describe over a podcast, but definitely check out the Jedi mind trick if you're constantly getting people backstepping on you and you're getting caught in cross ashigarami. Just be aware that playing half guard with the, seeking the Coyote half guard position can lead you into a cross ashigarami situation that you don't really want. So, I believe you do have to be comfortable in those positions anyways. And I do think that counter is predictable. And I believe that it's part of the position. It's part of playing that position, but just be aware of it. Be aware of how you can counter it. And if you do get caught in it, make sure that your cross ashigarami game is on point. Your defenses are on point. You know how to escape. You know how to defend, and you know what you can do from that cross ashi / reverse half guard position. Because most people nowadays, I think, are going to backstep. Just be aware of that. I guess the last thing I'll talk about is understanding. There's a couple more things I wanted to touch on. I wanted to talk about how you can shut down the Coyote guard. And I also wanted to talk about the bottom side knee bar, the Dogbar as it is known as. So if you're in the bottom side Coyote, a lot of the time what your partner will do is they will try to take their knee and bring it across to your other hip. And so this is a good way to shut down the Coyote half guard. But if that happens, you can actually start to set up the Dogbar, where we are locking like a figure 4 around our partner's leg. And we're essentially hitting this knee bar with our legs. I guess the Japanese name would be Hiza Gatame, right? Knee hold Hiza Gatame, if I'm not mistaken. So how do we do this move correctly? I truly believe to be good at this move, you have to eco it. You have to play with it with your partner. I would drill it because you need to feel like what it feels like when you have the correct breaking fulcrums and whatever. But of course, as this goes on, you need to add resistance and whatnot. I guess just studying Gordon and Danaher, the way that they teach this Dogbar move, it seems to me that you can use either hip bone and either leg, whether it's the top inside leg or the outside leg, to finish. But as a general rule, they use the bottom hip or the inside hip to finish when they're facing up. They have a half guard situation, they're using their bottom hip. You don't want to use your dick as a breaking fulcrum. You want to use the hip bones, whether it's the outside hip or the inside hip, because it's a strong fulcrum, right? But they use the inside hip as the breaking fulcrum when they're facing up, and if their partner, concedes the sweep to relieve pressure of the Dogbar, which is a common reaction, they'll fall over and give you the top side position. Then they switch their partner's kneecap to the outside hip, is something they say. But as a general rule, you're never going to, I don't think there's any one perfect way to do this move. They say, yeah, you can use your inside leg, you can use your outside leg. You just got to, and you can use either hip as well. You just got to feel their kneecap on your hip. When you're doing a Dogbar, how I mentioned earlier, when you're in the Coyote guard, you want to have your ear under your partner's belly button. Right? That's kind of our landmark. You really want to have your partner's, you want to have their stomach over your head. You really want to get underneath them when you're going to do a Dogbar. So you really got to hike them up. And that's going to be the only way that you can actually get their knee to go into the side of your hip. And so you're getting even more underneath them than you would be in a Coyote guard. But the Dogbar is a strong move. I can remember I went to Maui, maybe like this is before the fire in Lahaina. I was actually training in Lahaina with my buddy Gilberto, who he's been on the podcast before. Right when the Maui fires happened, I stopped at his gym. It's called Aloha Roll. Sometimes you might see me wearing a shirt on the show. I remember stopping in there and like having some good training. This is before the fires. It might have been like 8 years ago, 7 years ago. And he put me in a dog bar and actually popped my knee. And I was having such a good training session too with his guys. And then he was like my last roll and he put me in a dog bar and popped my knee. It's like, fuck. And this was before I had my meniscus fixed again, the second surgery. And so, yeah, that kind of sucked, but I was like, man, that's a strong move. Like you can really break someone with the dog bar. If you've ever listened to Craig Jones's You Can't Knee Bar DVD, he teaches this technique as well. And he talks about Bernardo Faria doing the dog bar from the top position because he would love the over under pass, right? Like he would pull deep half guard. This is back when a lot of people didn't know how to deal with the deep half guard. Nowadays, deep half guard's not a desirable position in high level jiu-jitsu competition, I would say, just because of the lack of the frames. But this guy, is kind of a pioneer of the half guard and just pulls deep half guard. Would sweep a lot of guys from deep half guard. And then when he gets on top, he would do this dog bar where like he basically has no tension in the leg. And then as hard as he can, drops his fucking hips on this partner's leg with the intention of breaking his knee. It's just like the meanest thing I've ever heard. You look at Bernardo Faria, the guy is like, he seems like such a nice guy. Like, it's huge honor for me today. Like such a nice guy. And then he's in competition, just absolutely like destroying people's knees without any mercy or any care, just to win like a $5 medal. It's pretty funny, right? And I don't blame him, right? I understand, at the higher levels, guys are trying to break each other, so it is what it is. But yeah, dog bar from top position or bottom position, Hizugatame, very, very powerful move. And it's definitely something that you want to fit into your Coyote series, because that could very well happen should your partner's knee fall. When you're in the Coyote, you always need your partner's knee to be on the inside and on the ground, right? You want to turn your hips down to get to that Coyote position. But if that knee drifts across, now we can start to look to go back into a dog bar situation. What if our partner, knows that you love the Coyote half guard and they start hiding their foot, or even worse, they start posting their knee onto your center line, almost like a knee on belly, but you have their leg trapped in a half guard. Luckily, my friend Jake McKenzie has developed a move called the knee twist. You could Google that or YouTube that. The knee twist is an amazing way to force your partner's knee to the inside. And basically all you're doing is as they start going knee on your belly, you're going to scissor your legs. So your top leg is going to scissor and your bottom leg is going to back scissor in the other direction. And you're going to turn your hips completely down into the mat. And this forces your partner's knee to the mat. From here, you're able to now make a pass off with their leg to the Kosoto hook. So definitely YouTube the knee twist if you're a half guard player, or if you have somebody who's like constantly bringing their knee on your belly. Very, very effective way to get into the Coyote guard. My favorite way to shut down the lower leg shift in the Coyote guard when someone does that to me is I kind of came up with a defense to this by thinking, okay, well, what would I need if I was going to do the Coyote guard to somebody else? I need connection. I need to have my ear on their belly. I need to hold them close. So when I say connection, I need like my body completely connected with their body. I need hipping pressure into the knee. I need their knee on the ground and my hips facing down. So I hate to say it, it's actually pretty easy to defend. I just go into a downward dog position. I go completely into a tripod on my hands and my feet, like a 4-point, and I go right into a downward dog position. What this does is it creates distance between my hips and my partner's hips. It's very hard for my partner to turk my leg from there and create that knee pressure because I am generating height. Okay. But this does allow my partner to move into deep half guard. It'll allow them to get frames, like maybe moving into like a Ashigarami variations, X guards. So you're kind of out of the frying pan and into the fire, but at least you're not getting your knee twisted off and you're not getting swept into like a really dominant bottom half guard position, right? So for me, whenever I feel like my partner is going to be going into a coyote guard, that's generally what I like to do. I like to 4-point, get my hips up, and turn my knee across to the far hip. Remember, if you are in a coyote guard, or sorry, half guard, your partner's looking for a coyote guard, they need to be on their side. If they're on their side, they can always threaten wrestle ups. If I am in that position on top and they're about to enter the coyote guard, if I 4-point stance and turn my knee across to the other hip, now their hip is flat. And like I said, if you're flat, you're fucked. So now you can't wrestle up when your hips are flat. You might be able to wrestle up through the inside, like a deep half guard type wrestle up, but you're not going to be able to wrestle up on your underhook. And so I think that this is actually a pretty good response. It's not perfect, but it's better than, getting your knee twisted off and, like I said, getting swept into a dominant position. I see a lot of people address the coyote guard when they're in it by trying to put weight on their partner, but this actually just plays right into the roll through sweep. So I don't think that like being as heavy as you can and sprawling from there is really a great response. I think generating height and disconnecting from your partner is one of the best responses. Last thing I want to say is just remember, like, it's like what Dan Herr says, when you wrestle up from any position, especially without the gi, but even in the gi as well, like just look at all sweeps as wrestle ups. There's going to be that first jiu-jitsu style sweep movement that off balances your partner. But then after that, there's going to need to be a second phase that basically resembles like a wrestling like takedown. Maybe it's wrestling onto a single, maybe it's coming up into a body lock situation. You can expect that somebody who's competitive is going to not want to go down. So once you start to off balance and get up, make sure that you can kick your ass into that second gear and finish that reversal, because it's going to take a little bit of athleticism for sure against somebody who doesn't want to get taken down. That's why I love the coyote guard, because most of the time when you sweep from there, say a roll through, for example, you're scooping the far leg and the far hip. So you have tremendous control over your partner's body. Very hard for them to be athletic from that position. If you are wrestling up into that leg shelf single leg, that backside single leg position that I mentioned earlier, you're going to really want to drive your pressure into their butt with your shoulder, and your hands are going to be looking for that secondary leg. So just like, the majority of the most effective sweeps, we want control of both legs. If you can do that, your job's going to be a lot easier. You're going to get on top, ideally in an excellent pinning position. There is more, but oh my God, I am exhausted from all that information. I just really wanted to do an episode on the coyote guard because it is a guard that I use every day. I use it in the gi. I use it in no gi. I think that is effective at all levels, and especially as we get older, right? Like, man, I'm 37. Sometimes it's difficult to go with these athletic guys. I got a couple more years where I can do that, but father time catches up to us all, and we do have to adapt our games. So I really, really like the knee twist. I like coyote half guard. I think that it is, if I could pick one system for the half guard for the rest of my life, that would be the one. And I think that you guys should all invest in it too. If you are a coach and you have a kids program, right, and you're thinking about like, how am I going to introduce the half guard to kids? Start with the underhooks, man, and start with having them wrestle up from there, and then teach them to roll through sweep and teach them how to get their head underneath their partner's belly. And man, they're going to be sweeping everyone, because it is shocking how little half guard is taught to kids from what I've seen. And I ref tournaments, I coach at all the local tournaments here in Vancouver, and like nobody's using this guard for the kids. So my whole thing is like, okay, I'm going to teach my kids this move so that when they get to that coyote guard, there's just they're like a dog on a bone, right? That's what I tell them. Their leg is the bone and you're the dog, and you're not going to let that go for anything. And we're going to create some real good pressure on our partner's knee and roll them through, or we're going to wrestle up into the top position. So throat is very sore, not feeling the greatest, but I had to pump that episode up for you guys. Guys, check out the links on the bottom if you want to support the show. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you've made it this far and you're hearing me just spurg out about half guard, I really appreciate your time. I'm going to see you guys next week. And if I don't see you, happy Canada Day. Happy Independence Day for you Americans. God bless America. And just remember that the Everyday Jiu-Jitsu podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu-Jitsu. I'm going to see you guys next week. Bye-bye.